Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive, the podcast that skips small talk and goes straight for the concepts that shape our thinking and behavior. In this podcast, cold expertise is defenestrated as warm philosophy is enthroned in an attempt to explore the field in which we're all scientists looking for answers, living well. Hello, world, and welcome to another episode of the Deep Dive. This time, I'm back with Visa in the studio. Hi, Visa.
Hey, Al. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Yes. So last time you were here and you said your book was going to come out in a few days. That was in December, and a few days turned out to be around 60, which isn't too bad. But it is out now, and I wanted to discuss it. And I think a good way to do it would be to actually refer to its name first. So Introspect. How do you feel about this term, and how is it relating to the different parts of the book, and how does it set the tone for the book or the theme?
Yeah. So the book has been on quite a journey itself. And initially, what I knew was that I wanted to write a book about. Okay, so first I wanted to understand boredom. That was the original thing that I was interested in. And from a bunch of reading and reflection, I came to the conclusion that there are primarily four variables that influence boredom. And so I can talk about it in terms of the solutions. So it's like you need to rest, you need to declutter, you need to be less perfectionist, and then you need to define your utility values. And so the first three things are kind of understood. So like if you're tired, you should rest. And if you're in a cluttered space, that makes it so some people say things like, there's nothing to watch on TV, or there's nothing to do, or there's I got nothing to wear, even though your closet is full of clothes and you feel like there's nothing to wear. And the statement might seem incorrect because there's obviously a lot of things to do, see, wear, blah, blah, blah. But the feeling is, I think there's a truth in the feeling that people experience. They experience the feeling that there's nothing to do. And part of it is, first of all, they're tired, and then they're cluttered, and then they're being perfectionist, meaning they want something above what they feel is possible. Like they want something more exciting, more compelling, more interesting, blah, blah, blah. So everything that they see around them does not quite meet the standards of what they're expecting subconsciously. So those first three things, I feel there are already books about those topics. There's books about the importance of rest and sleep and so on. There's, Marie Kondo and the joy of tidying up and decluttering. And like Barry Schwartz wrote a book called The Paradox of Choice, which is about perfectionism and being willing to satisfy. But I felt like there wasn't really a good book about the last thing, which is defining what is important to you and what your values are. Because if you don't know what you want, then you're going to sit in front of you're at a restaurant and you're looking at the menu, and there's a whole bunch of options, but you don't know what you want and you can't choose. And so I wanted to write about how to figure out what you want. And so the first few drafts of the book were kind of about that, like, how do you figure out what you want? But when I wrote those drafts, I read them and something just felt off to me. Like it didn't seem correct. Like how, like I did a bunch of Googling and reading and talking to friends and reading my own journals and stuff. But like the question, how do I figure out what I want, almost seems like a fake, like a mislead, like a deliberate misdirection. And the thing I continued exploring, and it's like, children don't ask, what do I want? Children just do they just do what they want. They already know what they want. And so what I came to believe, and so I wouldn't say that I like know this for certain, but I've come to believe that people are almost innately or like born pretty much knowing what they want. But then as you grow up and you go through life, your parents might tell you, no, you can't have that, or, this is not appropriate, or this is wrong. And then, you grow a bit older and you have social pressure and you have friends, and you want to fit in with your friends, and you want the things that your friends want, or, there's advertising in the media, and there's just all these messaging that we get. And it kind of gets in people's heads, and they get detached from what they want. So to figure out what you want, it's not so much about going on some extent, some kind of investigative inquiry of something beyond yourself, but it's actually already within you. And the thing is to figure out how you're blocking yourself from what your feelings are and what you want. Because there might be shame, there might be guilt, there might be repression of some kind, all kinds of different ways that might be going on. And so the word introspect, I remember asking on Twitter, what's an elegant way of saying articulate what you want, or like figuring yourself out. And so I wanted like a one word kind of answer to that. And it's just, I riffed a little bit. I remember at one point I came up with the word one-triculate, which is like a horrible word. It's like want and articulate. And I was like, I do not want to use that word. Please give me a better word. And like a bunch of people gave a bunch of suggestions, and introspect was just my favorite suggestion that someone gave me. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like looking inwards, just kind of figuring out stuff on the inside. I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And so that stuck. And so the book became titled Introspect. And then I went through a few drafts, and now it is what it is.
Nice. So when you say that, in a sense, it sounds like you think that when people can't figure out what they want, in essence, it's a kind of a little extinguishing that's going on of a fire inside, something like that. And, numerous studies have been showing that everything to do with decision making is very emotional, right? So just logic alone is not actually going to help you choose anything. We need some sort of a different kind of impetus to actually reach out for something and go for it. And I really like this idea that when we don't feel it, when we don't know where to go next, in essence, there is some sort of an emotion that's either suppressed or is missing for some other reason. And that is also what I got from reading your book at the beginning, especially is there is a lot of awakening of all things. And yeah, that seems to be a theme to get going again. Right.
So I remember a while ago we were on Twitter, and I was kind of shit posting about was it Plato's chariot and the concept there. And so I wouldn't say that I have a thorough understanding of what exactly he intended with that framework. But the interesting thing I would say for me is that while writing my book, I did a bunch of reading of older books and just older stuff. I haven't yet been able to completely kind of integrate all of my reading and learning into the book itself. I'm going to do that in subsequent versions. But I would say, like, super broad strokes, zooming all the way out, there's this book by Rollo May. He published it in 1953. And the book's called Man's Search for Himself. And it's kind of, I think it's a deliberate riff off of Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. But anyway, like he references like Nietzsche and Freud and all these people. And like, again, we can probably spend hours going into the nitty-gritty of what exactly is logic, what is emotion, what is the will, what is like all those things. But I would say, just at the very big picture, broad strokes level, we can say that the way that our contemporary everyday language, the language that we use in talking about business and talking about just not just business, but like the pop psychology of 2010s, of post-millennium pop psychology is very instrumental. It's very logical, mechanical, and it's kind of been this way for at least a few decades. I'd say like since World War II, before, like, again, like going into the nitty-gritty of the scholarship of that is something you can probably spend a lot of time on. And I'm not going to claim to be an expert or an authority on that. But when you look back and you read older stuff, you go back to like Spinoza, right? Like, so I mean, broadly, I get the sense that what Rollo May thinks, he kind of blames Descartes for it. He feels like Descartes sort of did this split of the mind-body duality in popular consciousness. And then people just kind of went along with it. And the way that people describe themselves is different from the way that people describe themselves in the past. Like in the past, I think there's some stuff about how and so you can read up like the breakdown of the bicameral mind, which I don't, again, it's like that's a whole messy, murky topic, and different people have different interpretations. Some people say that Julian Jaynes, who was the author of that book, was like completely insane or like was completely wrong. And I don't know enough to judge, but I think what like a casual listener or layperson can think about is that it's unlikely that the way that we speak and think of ourselves today is the same as it's always been, right? Like, so even things like photography, like our technology definitely influences our mental models of things. And so like the introduction of things like photography and filmmaking and movies and all that, that has shaped our language for speaking about ourselves and thinking of ourselves as subjects and so on. And it's just interesting in the idea that we may have kind of lost certain ways of relating to ourselves, and not lost entirely, like it's gone, but like it's just not kind of in the mainstream ways of thinking. But it comes out in, it comes out in like our love songs even, right? Like, the heart wants what it wants, or like, owner of a lonely heart. Like just there's all these unbreak my heart. There's all this stuff. I would like to, I might do a blog post or something, just exploring the language that we use, and our metaphors. We say things like, I got cold feet, or I'm like half-hearted about it. Like, it's very physical and
oh yeah,
like we use that language, but there's a bit of a disconnect between our popular psychology and our like older language for how we describe ourselves. So, and I think that disconnect is a source of anxiety for people. Like they feel that the way that we are, you go to school and you sit at your desk for hours and hours, or you go to your job, and just the structure of our everyday life does not match what is kind of resonant for the human being, right? Literally.
Right. Yeah. It seems that, like I said, the beginning of the book is a lot about awakening. And can you share a little bit about how you've implemented some of these ideas in your life in terms of maybe trying to reconnect in some way and kickstart a creative process or anything like that? Because it seems that, and I already know this from our last conversation and just from following you on Twitter, but it's very important to you that people actually go ahead and act on their impetus to make an impact in the world, and create and celebrate life with others, and not hold back, not keep things inside. And I wanted to see how this connects in your own personal life with topics discussed in the book.
Yeah, so it's been interesting for me because, from my point of view, I've always just been myself, and I've always just done the things that I like to do, and I've lived my life in doing what feels natural for me. And I have been privileged enough to kind of cultivate an audience on Twitter, and so I get to hear from a lot of different people. And what's been interesting for me is that, so I present myself on Twitter, I think, like as this very nerdy, curious person who likes ideas and stuff, which is true. And I receive, people who are drawn to me are also people who are very into ideas and thinking and philosophy, all those things. But like I think a common difference between me and a lot of people who hang out in my space is that they tend to be almost there's a substantial part of them who are like very, very cerebral. And I would describe myself as quite cerebral, but I've also always been lucky to love music and love art and love, poetry. Like when I was a teenager, I used to play in a band. So I've always had, I do have like my logical, rational side, but I've also always had this very passionate, I love books, I love media, stories can make me cry. I've always had that. And so for me, I guess I've returned to those things a lot. I remember when I was a teenager, I wasn't doing very well in school because I just hated school. And the thing that would save me emotionally, so I would feel, depressed, anxious over why am I not studying? Why am I not being a good son? Why am I not, living up to expectations? And the thing that would always bring me solace and comfort was music and songwriters and art, and even like watching Lord of the Rings. I try to rewatch it like once a year or so, and I feel like it's a love letter to humanity and the human spirit and courage and friendship and all those things. And to me, these things are sacred. It's like very, very important, and it kind of it renews the human spirit. It makes life worth living. There's a quote from Dead Poets Society, the Robin Williams movie, where he says, there are all these great things that sustain life, medicine and law and science and all those things. They make life bigger, more bountiful, and all those things. But like love, music, art, that's what we live for. And I've always kind of, that just seemed self-evidently correct to me. I never really needed anybody to like argue that at me to persuade me of it. It's just obvious. Like when people are on their deathbeds, what do they think about? They think about what they love, what mattered to them, who are their friends, who are their loved ones. And yeah, so I have kind of, so the thing that kind of gave me the conviction and motivation to write Introspect was that people would DM me on Twitter. They would private message me asking, they say, oh, you seem quite happy. You seem quite well adjusted. You seem like you're having a good time. And you're also a nerd like me, but I'm not having a good time. Like, can you help me out? And I'll be like, okay, like I'll ask questions like, what's going on with you? Or what are you struggling with? What do you want to be doing? What do you want to blah, blah, blah. And through those conversations, like I found there have been multiple people that I have been able to help somewhat. Some people have even told me that they found me more helpful than their therapist, which to me is mind blowing. Amazing. And I now understand why. At the time I was like, because some therapists, they're very kind of clinical and they follow a checklist, and it's better than nothing, but it's not very humane sometimes. And again, like the healthcare system is complex, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, having been able to help people just by talking with them, asking them questions, being interested in their answers, and being genuinely kind of encouraging and supportive, and witnessing them really kind of they relax, they kind of the tension gets relieved for them. And I'm like, oh wow, if I can do this for like a dozen people via text, then I should theoretically be able to do it with a book. And turns out that doing it in a book is actually harder, because in a text, you can ask a question. And if they don't really like the question, you can like change it. Like you don't, it's like you can adapt to the person. Whereas a book is static, it can't adapt to the person. And so you have to kind of, this is a different modality. It's a different way of trying to engage with someone. So a lot of my writing process has been, how do I have that conversation with someone who's not talking back to me, which is much harder. But yeah, so I basically had to talk with myself and second guess myself, and that has been a whole journey. But broadly, that's it. Yeah.
Wonderful. And in terms of actually stopping boredom, do you find that once boredom is eliminated because somebody is now again in touch with what they would actually like to reach for, maybe it's also, now I'm just throwing a thought out there, but is it also that we kind of overstimulate ourselves to the point where our baseline kind of goes up and up to the point where it's harder to make anything exciting?
That is an interesting question. I think, so again, I'm just spitballing, so I'm not an expert, but I think that overstimulation, I would describe it almost as it's similar to addiction, right? It's not all
tolerance.
Overstimulation it's not all overstimulation is necessarily addiction, but addiction is a kind of overstimulation. And if you examine addiction, and I talk about it in terms of coping mechanisms and copes, because I think addiction is a very loaded phrase and it's got like clinical associations. And I just want to kind of talk about it in a more abstract or less loaded sense. But so why do people overstimulate? If you eat a chocolate cake and it's nice, and then when you finish the cake, and then like you don't really want, most people don't really want to have the second cake. They're like, oh, the first cake's good, I'm good, thanks, I'm full. But like some people go on and have the second cake and the third cake. I still remember there's a line from Louis C.K. stand-up bit from a long time ago where he said, the meal doesn't end when I'm full, the meal ends when I hate myself. That's when it ends.
Yeah,
right. And I think he was being very honest there. I think it's like there's this sense of, when a person is choosing to overstimulate on some level, it's a kind of self-medication that is being taken a bit too far, and it's because it's like overcompensating for something else. So it's like, I'm not saying that people can't enjoy stimulus to a very high degree. So like you can watch a lot of movies, if you're like passionate about movies and you want to just dive in and really enjoy movies. Like I can imagine you might watch like 2 or 3 movies a day, become a film critic, become an author, like really make that a big part of your life. But that wouldn't feel like overstimulation. Overstimulation is like you're already sleepy, or you're already tired. You've already watched 3 movies, and you choose to play the fourth movie anyway, because it's kind of, you don't want to face the rest of your life. It's a kind of escapism, right? I think when overstimulation gets unhealthy, it's because it's a kind of escapism. And the thing to explore is what are you kind of trying to get away from? What are you afraid of? What are you uncomfortable about? And the interesting thing and the tricky thing about coping mechanisms and addiction and overstimulation is that I try to frame it as, and I kind of steal this from The Easy Way to Quit Smoking by Alan Carr. And they, those people successfully have managed to help a lot of people quit smoking. So I trust that their understanding of like the psychology of addiction is pretty sound. And they say things like, so when you read the book and they're like, you have gotten this book because you want to quit, or because a loved one gave you this book because they want you to quit, and they're like saying, you do not have to quit. Like you do not have to like, they don't want you to feel guilty or ashamed about the process of quitting, because they know that when you beat yourself up about it, it's gonna get worse. Because like you might make some progress in the short run, but like there's like an internal conflict within you, and eventually when you kind of see it as I need cigarettes to survive, or I need another fix. I can't go without my cigarettes. And then you're like, but I have to, and then you force yourself to do it. And then eventually when you reach the breaking point for that, and then you light up again, now you feel horrible for it. You feel guilty, you feel ashamed. You're like, oh, I'm such a terrible person. I'm not in control of myself. And then there's like guilt, sadness, anger, rage. There's all these feelings. And all of these kind of high arousal emotions, right? Like they're just very, very strong emotions that almost hijack the brain. And that just makes it very, very difficult to quit, because it spirals into this very intense kind of it's like polarized, and then you swing from extremes back and forth, and that just intensifies the habit. And so what the easy way people know, and I think it's true, and I'm trying to internalize this as well in my conversations with people, is that if you want to kind of and again, saying get rid of the behavior is like tricky language, because again, you're being kind of kind of violent about it, sort of like I have to get rid of this behavior. It's more of like I need to understand why I do this. Like, so you have to be very gentle and curious. Why do I smoke so much? Or why do I drink so much? Or why do I watch so many movies? Like, what is this cope protecting me from? Or what is it trying to, and
what am I running away from?
Exactly. And when you can be kind of like gentle with it and peaceful with it, the crazy oscillation kind of slows down, and then you can make progress. And that is something that I struggled with throughout my 20s, I would say. Like when I was about 24, 25, I was just so angry with myself all the time. Like, why am I not a better person? Why am I not? And Alan Watts has this great phrase. He says something like, the reason you want to be better is the reason why you're not. And he's like joking about it and having fun. And I was like, one, that doesn't make sense. And two, how are you so cheerful about it? It sounds horrible. It sounds like a curse. It sounds like a mean, cruel joke that I want to be a better person, and you're telling me that because I want to be a better person, I can't be. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's like a trap, right? But now I'm starting to get it. It's like, it's your discomfort with yourself that is kind of driving you away from yourself. But because you can never actually get away from yourself, then it's like a rubber band. Like the further you pull, the harder you snap back.
Yeah.
And so the thing is really, you have to accept where you are and be like, I might not like that I'm a smoker, or that I'm a heavy drinker, or whatever it is about myself that I don't like, but I have to accept that this is who I am right now, and this is where I am right now, and I am not gonna be cruel to myself. I'm gonna learn to get to know myself better and understand why I am the way I am, and be okay with that. And like when you can have that sort of peace, then it's like things can get better from there. But as long as the implicit message, and if you split this up into like a parent and child relationship, or like a husband and wife relationship, or just any relationship between two agents rather than within yourself, it becomes a bit more obvious. It's like if one person is very adamant that the other person needs to change, then the other person feels unloved, unaccepted, kind of, and they'll want to rebel against that, right? Like just think of a rebellious teenager who's like the parent says you can't date so and so, and then they're like, all the more they feel compelled to do it. There's something like that, and it goes on inside yourself as well. So like the person who wants the beach body and wants to be fit or wants to be really good at work, and they're like, oh, I demand that I myself kind of live up to my grand expectations. Right. There's another part of you that's like, no, fuck that. You're not the boss of me. I'm not gonna do whatever you tell me. And the more the way I frame it for myself is something like, so if you think about it as the conscious will is like the prefrontal cortex, it's the most recent development of the brain, right? It's like the adult in the room, but it's very recent. And then like if you go all the way to the base of the brain, and again, my neuroscience is not very correct, but like rough strokes, right? If you go to the base of the brain, it's like the lizard brain, which is like fighting, feeding, fucking, like, the very primal basic stuff. It can still be active when the rest of the brain has shut down. So it's like it knows that when you're tired or when you're overwhelmed or when you're angry, then it will get what it wants. So it can wait, and so there's that tension there, and you have to respect it. I find it's like some people use the analogy of it's like you are I think there's a book called The Elephant in the Brain, or like Dan and Chip Heath have a book where it's like your conscious mind is like the rider of the elephant. Mm-hmm. And the elephant is like the subconscious mind, and the subconscious is just more powerful than you. You can't beat it into submission. Like you can try in the short run, but like it will, when you're sleeping, it'll come for you, that kind of thing. And that can be kind of anxiety inducing for some people, I think, when they feel like, oh no, I can't control myself. But the beautiful thing is coming to realize that you have lived this long and your subconscious hasn't murdered you yet, right? And it is on your team. It does love you. It's messy, right? A part of it might hate you. It's like a family, right? Like family relationships are complex. You might hate your sibling, but you'll protect them against someone else talking shit about you.
Yeah, I think that it is a lot about making peace with yourself, and how you described addiction, I think is very much how it is. It's a coping mechanism for something, and it's running away from something. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that we call some more extreme experience a trip. Like I went on this trip, and then there's literal trips, and trying to move in time and space and imagination. And I really like just this simple adage that says, wherever you go, there you are. Which is kind of what you're saying, it's
so true.
You can try running away from things, and then you brought yourself there because, it's not actually a separate thing. And now I'm trying to connect this with boredom, which is interesting. Like boredom is almost this giving up. It's like feeling trapped, but in a different way, where it's not actually clear to you what you are. I mean, you may be kind of shooting in the dark, trying to find a way that will catapult you away from yourself at that moment, and you just can't find it. And in a sense, it's interesting because it is, I think it is better to be bored than to be actively addicted to something, because being addicted is really just having this, you're in a rut and you just keep going, you're just revving the engine and it's not going anywhere, and you're trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results and all that. With boredom, do you think it might signal that there is a sort of ripeness? Maybe you are ripe to find something new, to fill that space, to take on something new, but it's actually quite hard to become playful again, because all the things that you've mentioned about how our inner fire kind of gets extinguished, I think, at a young age, whether it's school or a traditional society where they tell you, well, no, not everything is possible. And, doing this, pursuing this creative path or something like that is not for you. It's not really for anybody, which is really always really interests me, because even the people who say it, they know the biggest entertainers, authors, filmmakers, whatever. It was like, how do they explain the fact that these people are out there, that in fact they did decide to do it and they pursued it and they made it? And I always wonder what the explanation was for people who see these other people and yet they say it's not for anyone, basically. to pursue these things? How do they explain the fact that there are people who are doing it and are successful? And are they telling themselves, well, they must have had parents who actually were okay with them doing it, or they had enough fire to fight their war. They were spirited enough to keep going. And I think that's a super important message, is that a lot of it is done with playfulness, with allowing yourself to do things that are not so goal oriented. They're not so heavy in the sense that you have to make it or else, right? You have to get it right, or you're not going to have something to eat or whatever. And so much weight is put on our shoulders as we grow up from these messages of don't do this, focus here on this thing that's going to that you're actually going to subsist on for the rest of your life. So playfulness seems to be a very important thing when you're trying to find the fire and spirit, man.
Yeah. And I would also add that you don't necessarily need to be dramatic about it. Like, you don't need to quit your job and kind of, without ever having done any of the thing that you want to do. And then you try it and then you fail. And then you're like, oh, what a horrible life. It's like you can, like, I would say no matter how, like for most people, like, again, if you can listen to a podcast, for example, like you can definitely carve out like 20 minutes a week for starters, like once a weekend, like 20 minutes, like just whatever it is that you wish you could do, like whether it's being a writer, being a musician, learning another language, or just something. But like you just set aside a small amount of time for yourself once a week that's precious and sacred to you to screw around and have fun. And the relief that provides is that you can kind of incubate for yourself this little sacred space that isn't it's not for sale, basically, right? So no matter how, even if you're broke and you don't have much money and you're like, I need to work hard, I need to make every minute count. Like, no, like 20 minutes once a week, right? And, like all religions have like the Sabbath where, you go to church, or like this, there's some time that is precious, whether it's for God or it's for community or for something else, but just some precious time that isn't for sale. And that time will be priceless for you, and it will nourish your soul, even if you don't end up being like a super successful artist or super successful, just musician, whatever it is that you love. Spending 20 minutes once a week, even if you're like an investment banker or whatever, right? Like 20 minutes once a week to just enjoy music for yourself, that adds up week after week. After a few years, you'll get good at it, and that's a joy in of itself, even if you never do anything with it. I also want to talk a bit about boredom again, about like the range of nuance in the experience of boredom. So there's like the casual, idle, almost pleasant, blissful boredom, which is fine. Like, if you're just kind of sitting on your ass doing nothing after, like that can be great. Right. But like when I was investigating boredom, I wanted to talk more about like this more corrosive kind of this foggy, dense, ominous sort of boredom, which is like you feel shitty even though you're not doing anything. Like you feel like you should be resting, but you can't rest. You feel like you should be doing something, but you don't know. Like it's just that everything is terrible sort of thing. And investigating that feeling, there's actually like someone who wrote a book, and he described a bit of this. It's in my book as well. I quoted him. I can't remember the name, but it's like he calls it demonic boredom, which is I think it's pretty accurate. It's like the feeling of it is just this very ominous sort of boredom. And in my investigation, I found that I think for a lot of people who are struggling with that deeper, darker boredom, the boredom can almost be itself like a band-aid over uglier, more unpleasant feelings. So it might be that you're afraid of something, but you don't want to admit that you're afraid. So you cover it up. I'm bored. So again, like you can instantly make any activity more exciting by raising the stakes. Right, like if you start gambling, like so some people end up gambling because of this, right? It's like you're watching some boring football match, you bet on one side and you put like $100 or $1,000 on it, and suddenly it's much more exciting. Like, oh shit, who's gonna win? It's like it has consequences. So I don't recommend gambling, but like broadly, like if you ask yourself, why am I bored? Be like, okay, like it's because you're operating in your safe zone where there's no consequences. You're inside your comfort zone. And the question is, why are you not leaving your comfort zone? Just a little bit, even. Why don't you go to the edge of your comfort zone and go beyond? And then people might give excuses that sound correct, where they're saying, oh, I don't have time, oh, I don't have money, I don't have whatever. But like, that's almost the excuse. People come up with excuses that, and I do this myself. I've done this while writing my book, which is so meta. Like, why have I not shipped my book yet? Oh, it's because it doesn't have enough, there's not enough details here. That's correct, but so why not ship the book with missing details? And the thing is, I'm afraid of what people will say. I'm afraid of criticism. I'm afraid, people will say it's not a very good book. I'm afraid people will say blah, blah, blah. So it's like, you have to come to terms with what you're afraid of. And it's way easier to just say, I'm bored, I'm tired. You're kind of complaining, but you're not admitting weakness, right? So it's, and if you can admit weakness to yourself and be vulnerable to yourself and with your close friends or whatever, then, it's a little bit scary at first, but then it's exciting. It's like, oh, I'm afraid of this, but what if we tried that? And then it starts to spiral into something fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It does make sense that, in a state of boredom, there may be things under the surface that have been pushed away. They're suppressed and they're waiting to be found. And yeah, I'm interested in hearing, like, is there a theme for the messages you say you've gotten in the past? What actually people, what is it that people feel they lack? Is it worries, kind of mundane worries about financial situations, or was it more spiritual crisis type of situation where people really didn't know what exactly or were towards what they want to go? What was it?
Yeah, so with the people who come to me, I think even things like mundane financial problems, that when you dig into it, it's not that mundane. It's never really the money itself, but what the money represents to them. It's like they feel that, I'm not making enough. I'm not keeping up with my peers. I have peers who are so much more successful than me, or, I can't. Some people may have like very status anxiety type issues where they feel like they should be more because they know that they're smart, but they're not making a lot of money. Some people might feel family pressure, but like it's invariably some kind of I feel, from having talked to probably hundreds of people at this point, it's like it really always I was taking notes on all of the reasons that people felt unhappy, or like at some point didn't feel comfortable with themselves or didn't feel satisfied with themselves. And one big theme that came up was a sense of inadequacy. Like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not sociable enough, I'm not sexy enough, I'm not attractive enough. Body image issues. Some people have like religious specific trauma with regards to their upbringing. Some people have like, the saddest ones are like people whose families are dysfunctional, and so it's like, why doesn't my mom love me? Like, why does she treat me so cruelly? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, that's like intellectually, that, oh, honey, like your parent has like issues and it's not your fault. But like for them on the inside, it doesn't feel that way, because it's like from childhood they just feel. So that's something that it's very difficult to help people with by just giving them some ideas. Like, they really need like rehabilitation by being immersed in relationships with people who care for them. But like super broadly, yeah, I feel like people feel inadequate, and they feel like if they kind of share the truth of themselves, it will be rejected in some way, like their uncertainties and stuff like that. Brene Brown has a bunch of good riffs about this. I was researching her again when I was writing my book, and she says things like blame, for example. It's a way of discharging anger and frustration and upset and just those sort of feelings. It's not really helpful. Blame is very seldom helpful for making things better. It's really just a momentary relief at discharging your frustration. And so if you do it inwardly towards yourself, you blame yourself for whatever outcome you're in, you temporarily feel better, but you're going to feel worse, because if it just feels like you're screwing things up. And yeah, I think that really people are lonely, people are isolated, people feel, so what is the truth of their inner experience is not accurately or adequately reflected in their external reality.
Mm.
So it's like the cheesy things are like, you scroll through Instagram and everyone looks so happy. Fuck, I'm not so happy. Like, but actually everyone's showing their highlight reels, right?
Oh
Everyone's
yeah. Oh
posting
yeah.
their happy shit. And then when they are feeling miserable, they're just scrolling and not sharing. And you amplify this across all media. There's this great thing where one of my favorite artists is Paramore, and Haley, the singer, she has a story about when she was performing on Good Morning America, right? And which is like their morning talk show. She's like super cheerful and chirpy. And the song that they were playing was called Fake Happy, which is like about pretending to be happy when you're not. And Haley was saying that the anchor, who's like super cheerful, was saying, "Oh, this is a song I relate to." And Haley was like, "Shit!" like even this person who's like this representation of this cheerful morning chirpy happy energy, she is saying that she relates to being fake, being a fraud, basically, right? Like her presentation of happiness is forced. And just the it's almost like it's like there's a conspiracy, it's like the conspiracy of happiness and being well put together, and not being angry inappropriately, not being sad inappropriately, like just being put together. I guess this is a very old thing that goes all the way back. I'm sure if you go back like several hundred years, people were still struggling with this. Like if you read novels and like depressed existential Russian novels, like it's all about this, right? Just society and even families, right? Like a father feels like he has to put on a brave face for his wife and kids, and if they see him struggling, and there's some truth to that. You don't want to just bleed all over everybody else. Like that's irresponsible as well. So you gotta this managing your emotions skillfully, and you're not born knowing how to do that effectively. Like if you look at a baby, it's like crying and screaming, and well-adjusted parents and family would help to nourish and support that child's emotional expression without suppressing it. But like nobody's a perfectly enlightened parent. Everyone's tired and frustrated. They have their own baggage, and so we're all kind of mucking around and screwing up, and then we screw up other people, and just this infinite fractal of screwing up. And we have to see the humor in it, and we have to kind of laugh about it and be like, okay, we're all human. We're just some guy, it's just some girl. And yeah, I think there seems to be a threshold that some people cross and some people have not crossed. And I think it's really a threshold of when you realize that like it's all a sham. It's just this big stage act. Like life is really this big.
Everybody's an imposter on some level, and I very consciously at some point, not too long ago, like basically when I was coming online, like maybe 2 years ago, just decided that I'm just going to be out there contributing my 2 cents on things and not really caring anymore. Just again, making this a lot more like play than about this serious thing where you stand to fail and suffer some serious consequences if you're not good. I mean, if you write something that isn't good, for you, it's going to be very hard to receive this criticism maybe. But the upside is that if it's not very good, it's also not going to be very memorable. You actually have to probably try very hard to make something so bad that it's memorable in terms of some piece of art. And then if you've managed to somehow do that, it's probably going to become a piece of cult, which people are going to love after 5 years. Just wait 5 years and your really horrible stuff is going to become great. People are going to appreciate, because they will assume that you were just, this is the kind of genius you are, that you're able to create something that's so outstandingly bad. And yeah, I wonder, so what are some of the baby steps that people can take sitting in their state of boredom, or not really sure, not being sure about what is wrong? What are some baby steps that can be taken to get out of this rut?
Yeah, I first quickly want to just build on what you just said about screwing up badly. I think that you can examine culture and see that while people can be very unforgiving in the short run of something bad happening, like if you remember Rebecca Black's Friday, the song Friday, And like she was mocked for that for like a couple of years maybe, but then she came back like several years later and she's developed as an artist, and her new stuff is it's not bad, and like it's ended up being a net positive for her. Same for like Monica Lewinsky, for example. She was at the heart of like the Bill Clinton scandal back then, and that was, you know, society was different 20 years ago, and it was like super cruel to her and super everything. And you know, she was ashamed and she felt like she wanted to die, and it's just very like, I highly recommend looking up her story. She's given like TED Talks and stuff since, and now she's really like she's been a phoenix out of the ashes. Like she's just well adjusted, well spoken, you know, doing good things for speaking about shame and bullying and all these things. And it really, studying these people has really taught me that like no failure has to be final, you know, and if you failed in the past, it can take some time to get back on your feet. But when you eventually do that, people admire that and people respect that, because everyone's afraid of fucking up and being, you know, mocked and bullied for it and like laughed at. And if they see that that's happened to you, and you, I mean, of course, you're going to be broken for a while, or like you'll cry and miserable and feel like shit. But when you eventually get up again and have courage to stand up again, like that really, really resonates with a lot of people. So there'll probably still be like 5%, 3% of people who are still kind of annoying about it.
Misanthropes,
and still unforgiving. I think you'll see that they are being they're being too vindictive at that point, and that's because of their own personal issues. Like they have some reason that they feel a need to kind of continue to beat the dead horse, so to speak. And yeah, I would say that reflecting on these things, I think, is very healing. It's just realizing that humanity as a whole, like the bulk of humanity, I think, again, while people are mostly tired and stressed and they're kind of busy, they don't really pay a lot of close attention to what's going on, blah, blah. So they might jump to a bad conclusion and stick with it for a while. But like humanity does love redemption stories. And so if you fuck up and you make a genuine effort to redeem yourself, eventually people come around. And that's good to know, I think, like in the like you're probably not going to fuck up as badly as some of those people, but the fact that if you're able to face the truth of what happened and be honest with it and laugh at yourself a little bit, like there's recovery at the end of that. Okay, as for the question about baby steps out of boredom, like, yeah, I think again, it goes back to the 20 minutes a week sort of thing. And like, you can realistically, you can do it every day. You know, you can like when I say 20 minutes a week, that's like if you're a parent and you're busy with work and you're just bills to pay, like it's very, very difficult to squeeze in any time. Then it's like 20 minutes a week. But most people, I would say, you know, if you don't have, like, if you're not totally overwhelmed, like 20 minutes a day can even be restorative. You know, it makes you feel this, like whether it's meditation or whether it's reading a book, right? Or whatever it is that you love, ask yourself what it is that you love and really kind of go into it. And then having a little bit of that every day makes life feel less like a prison, like less hectic, like you're going from one task to another, going from one to-do list item to another. And some people, I think the funny thing is they then put this on their to-do list like it's another task that they have to do for. And I'm like, you know, it shouldn't be that way. But you know, you different people have different paths to whatever it is that they figure out. You know, it's you might go through a messy path along the way. But yeah, I always ask people to remind themselves of who they were at the start. Like write your memoirs. I especially recommend that. Like even just in your notes app on your phone, like when you're on the waiting for a bus or train, just write the story of your life to yourself. Like, hi, so and so, first name, right? Like I was born in this year, and like when I was a child, I used to do this, and my parents are like that, and my, you know, when I went to school, I like to do this, and you just start rambling about what your story is. And I find that, you know, getting a sense of that broad, big picture sense of your life, I think that that is very it pulls people out of the daily grind that I think people find so oppressive, right? Like, and I also similarly recommend reading biographies of anybody, like, you know, just because a biography is written over the span of a person's life, and that pulls you out of like the daily news cycle where every day there's some breaking news and it seems like, oh, you know, is Russia going to invade Ukraine? Oh, you know, it's but like if you look at last year's news and the year before that, like yeah, every year World War III is supposedly going to happen, and every year, I mean, someday it might, but it helps to just get a sense of bigger perspective. I think that these things kind of just make it easier for you to like prioritize yourself. And again, when I say prioritize yourself, I don't mean become like a selfish asshole, And there really is this thing of when you make a little bit of time and space to listen to yourself and do what you love, you then feel this relief, and you can be more present for other people. You can be like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And
Oh yeah.
really listen. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Do you notice, is it something that you noticed, or conceptually you think is natural for people to come out of boredom and into meaningful work in terms of artistic creation? Is that where you'd like to see people going? Because I know you're big on actually encouraging people to contribute their novel syntheses and views on things. Is that something that the book aims to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't specify that you should necessarily um, become a creative, but I mean, so I consider myself one, and I think when I was reading some Nietzsche, I was reading some Rollo May, they were saying things like the creative spirit of self creation. And again, I need to read more and study more and really get into precisely what is meant by that. But there's this sense of um, even if you never actually make, whether it's a painting or a song or whatever it is, like even if you don't make those things, the way in which you conduct yourself is a kind of art in a sense. You can like just the choices that you make, how you choose to spend your time, deciding to talk to old friends, deciding like just the decisions that you make is itself, like if you can think of a human life as just a series of choices, like there's artistic sets of choices, right? It's almost like a portfolio of choices, and you can have a more artful and joyful life, right? A portfolio life than if you just follow kind of what the script tells you to do, right? So that is a creative life, even if you don't literally produce creative works. Although there does seem to be some correlation, like when you start making interesting, you just there's something about the joy of making things. And if you check out like just tribal communities like the Kung Bushmen or the Kalahari, like those people, they make beads and they paint their own homes, and it's very they're very handsy with their stuff. It's not,
Right.
and that does seem to relate in some way their relationship with their environment. They feel that their homes are their homes and their clothes are their clothes, and just they're very deliberate about the choices that they make and the things that they inhabit. And they don't necessarily think of themselves as I am an artist, like I am
No, but
professional.
it's interesting to note that all these things are happening exactly in those times when they probably are fed for the day or for the week, and this is the time where had they suffered boredom, it would be in those times, but instead they go in and create these things. I also really like the link you're making between art and the way you conduct yourself, because we mentioned biographies, and this is exactly that, realizing that you have the agency to actually be the author of your biography, not in the sense that you're putting it down in words, but thinking ahead and steering yourself to the places where you want to visit, and more proactively living out a story that you already have in your head and that you feel is going to be a good story for yourself that you'd enjoy at the same time experiencing and reading, So
Yeah.
it's not that we can completely control that and make sure that whatever we become a huge success, but just as you also mentioned, the stories of redemption, the stories of trying and failing, that is really at the heart of so many stories, going and the struggles, and it's worth doing, I think, for a lot of people. And that is really hard to pull the trigger on a decision like that of, I am going to make a good story, even at the expense of me feeling security. day in and day out. I'm going to sacrifice security for the chance of actually experiencing a good biography. It sounds weird, but living out an interesting story like that.
Yeah, and again, I would emphasize that you don't need to change the entire thing all at once. It can be like just like one page every chapter, one like 2 pages every chapter. Like just you kind of slowly increment to it. And yeah, another thing I would say is that if you're bored, like you don't necessarily need to be making stuff. You could be talking to people, right? Or you could be cooking, or you could just anything that interests you. So it's tricky to kind of give suggestions to people because I don't want to like influence their decisions. It's really how do you be influenced by yourself? Because deep down there are things that you love, that you care about. You that more than everyone else around you, and I think everyone is nourished witnessing someone else really love the thing that they love, right? So even if I'm never gonna get into, let me look around, jewelry make. Okay, I like jewelry, so that's cheating. But like like
producing
yoga,
microphones.
Yeah, just something that I'm not very into. Like, okay, audio technology. I'm not all that passionate about audio technology. But if someone really loves it and they really want to understand sound and audio engineering and they're just very passionate about it, me witnessing them love that is nourishing for me as well. Even though I'm never going to, like, maybe someday I'll be like, hey, what do you suggest I should get? I'm renovating my house. What kind of sound system should I get? And then they're like, ooh, have you tried this? You got to use the 7x1. I'm like, no idea what you're talking about, but I love to hear it. I love your passion for your thing. So it's like, each person should be passionate about the thing that they love. And again, like even if you're not like internationally, professionally successful, you can be the person who's just in amongst your friend group. You're known as the person who loves that, and that can be enough. That can be a joy.
Yeah. So it's, first of all, it's absolutely attractive in people that they're this interested in something, and it makes it easy for me because, like you say, if I'm a junkie of anything, let's say, I hope I'm not, but certainly talking with people and hearing them kind of even raving or rambling about the stuff that really turns them on in terms of curiosity and intellect, like that is wonderful, and then I'm able to actually approach it myself with renewed curiosity about this thing, which I didn't really know I would be interested at all. It's fascinating. And then you realize that I think a lot of the times things we're not interested in, we're kind of projecting on the whole area that maybe it's some nonsense area that people are kind of like to discuss or something like that. Every once in a while you meet the person who actually speaks about it and is able to communicate to you the big ideas about it that make sense, that are not just exchanging opinions on something, but it's whether they connect it to something intellectual from a different domain, or whether they connect it to something emotional. And they, like fashion for me, I'm not there, as you can see, but I've met those people who've been able to make the connection between fashion and their well-being, and now I'm getting it, like how it can be such a thing, and it's not just about superficiality or anything like that. So it's definitely great to meet people who are passionate about things like that in that way.
Yeah, I know this guy who's super passionate about Japanese tea ceremonies. He's not even Japanese, but like he's so into it. I just witness him talking about it. I'm like, it's so nice that he just cares so much. And like for him, it's everything, it's spirituality and it's philosophy. And it's beautiful.
That's great. In terms of the more advanced parts of the book, what are they aimed at doing, and how do you want to advance people who read this book? Like, what do you wish for them?
Right. So the book is split into 5 acts: Act 1, Act 2, and so on. It follows a traditional hero's journey. And so Act 1 is just introducing the idea of the call to adventure, this sense of discomfort that you have in your old life, and the sense that there's more to life and you got to go out into the world, but it's scary and difficult. And Act 2 is a lot about training to be prepared for the challenges ahead. So it's like learning, cultivating a sense of humor, learning project management, learning how to, manage your feelings and that kind of thing. And then Act 3 is into the labyrinth, and that's about facing your coping mechanisms, facing your fears, facing discomfort, all those things. And then Act 4 is the really difficult, painful one, which is confronting yourself, basically confronting the minotaur at the center of the labyrinth. Who is yourself? Who is, there's the part of you that was shunned, unloved, kind of, the ugly parts of you, the parts of you that you hate, the parts of you that you think are socially kind of unacceptable. And there's the tyrant energy, this sense of having to live up to expectations and having to make sure that everything goes according to plan, and like beating yourself up if you fail at it, and how do you deal with that? And I think that's the hardest chapter to write. It's the hardest chapter to read as well, like for people who are uncomfortable. And it's just coming to terms with the fact that your relationship with yourself is less than ideal, I think. I mean, again, different people respond to that differently. Like for some people, it's like, oh yeah, of course, that's just obviously I'm beating myself up all the time. Like, tell me more. Whereas for some people, it's like they might not realize that they're doing it because they don't even separate, the voice in their head beating them up all the time with themselves. They just see it as, I wake up in the morning and I feel like shit and I don't know why. And then if you point out to them that that's you, actually, you are the person who is being cruel to yourself, like that can set them off on a, oh shit, oh fuck, what's going on? Who am I? And so that's challenging. It's challenging to, like, I invite people to be like, if this feels kind of anxiety induced, like take a break, relax, go for a walk. Like you don't need to force yourself to really internalize this. But it is kind of an attack, and when I tweet about this kind of thing, people sometimes say, is this an attack? Are you attacking me? And it's like, yes, I am kind of suggesting to you that you might be the person who is causing you pain and frustration in life. But I also think that you are the solution. It's like you are both the hero and the villain at the same time, and you have to find a synthesis. And then Act 5 is about returning with the elixir, sort of, integrating your dark and light selves, and kind of finally it's about paying it forward and kind of like cultivating this nourishing energy, kind of releasing the tension, like stop going to war with yourself, put the gun down. And so my hope is that so I don't expect someone to read the book and then instantly be enlightened and then be like, oh, I'm all my problems are gone, I'm super happy now. Like but people have already been telling me like their early reactions to the book, and it's like people say, they have faced themselves more, they've journaled about things that they were ashamed to talk about at first, but the book gave them courage to try, and they tried it, and now they feel more relaxed, they feel more at ease with themselves. So that's hearing that for me, and them telling me that relieves me, because I was tense that it's not going to work. And I just, I kind of encourage people to look at their lives, and then they feel bad, and then it doesn't get better, and then like I did that to them, I feel bad. But thankfully it seems that it's working and people are reacting well to it. And my hope is that, so none of the things that I say are like especially novel, or it's all old wisdom that you can find yourself if you just read a whole bunch of old books and old, read the Bible even, like just read all this ancient wisdom about how to live a good life. Like you'll find all of these things inside. What I hope that I did, and I think I succeeded more, like fairly well, is I try to present all of it in a minimal-ish framework. And by minimal, it's freaking 300 pages, but you can just read the overviews of every chapter, which is like maybe 20 pages altogether. And it kind of just gives you this overarching structure for thinking about the narrative of your personal journey through your difficulties. Because I do find a lot of people, they know that they have difficulties in their life, but they don't know what it's going to be like to face them. So it feels like I'm just going to go and get myself hurt for no reason, and then I got to live my life. I have work to do, I got bills to pay, I got deadlines to meet, and I could face my feelings, which will be unpleasant, or I could just watch movies and play video games and then ignore it. Because if I face my feelings, like what's the point? I'm just going to be upset and then fuck. And so I present a narrative in which, yes, you face your feelings and it's going to be unpleasant, but there is a pleasantness at the end of it. And so that, I think, gives people hope and courage. So I guess, yeah, after all of that, the point is to give people kind of courage and hope and a sense that they're not alone, that they can go on this journey towards greater integration with themselves. They can feel more at home in their own body, in their own life, and they can like wake up in the morning and enjoy their life a bit more than they do yesterday. And like this is a ongoing process that you can learn. You can learn that skill set and apply it to yourself day to day, and become more and more of a nourishing presence in your own life for yourself, and then also for the people around you. And that's the real glorious end game, right? Like when you're done healing, and Dolph Lundgren, the guy who acted in Rocky and Universal Soldier, like this big 6'6" blonde muscular guy. He had a rough childhood. Like his father was abusive, and like he became this tough, fit, high accomplishing guy. He's like a master's in microbiology or something, like super accomplished guy. But like in his 20s and 30s, I think he said that there was a fog in his life, and he was kind of violent as well, and he was like drinking, and he was just not good to people in his relationships with them. Like he'll be yelling and stuff, and like I think he got married, got divorced, and like he was just his relationship with his children was not that great. And then he went through this process of healing and meditation and talk therapy and all of those things. And he described how it changed his life. The fog lifted. He felt the tension from like his body releasing, and then he called his ex-wife, and he cried, and he called his children, and he said that he was sorry for everything, and they cried, he cried. It's just this beautiful story of healing and reconciliation. And then he says, having done all of that, you look around and you see that, oh wow, so many other people are hurting as well. And then like we can heal ourselves, and then when we have excess capacity, we can heal each other, and then we can try and spread that and heal more and more people. And yeah, I think that's possible. I think I have been privileged enough to be kind of, been on a bit of that journey myself. And I am trying to, without being preachy about it. I think, so again, like when I said earlier about if someone wants to be a better person because they feel that their current state is unacceptable, then that doesn't work, because it's like you feel your own aversion to yourself and there's a negative reaction to that. Similarly, I feel like when someone tries to be like a guru figure or like a hero figure, and they're like, I'm going to save everyone, I'm going to fix everyone, people sense that implicit in that is the judgment that people are not okay the way they are. Like, I mean, you look at the world, like, yeah, the world's obviously, there's a lot of shit going on in the world. But I do believe that if you want to try and make the world a better place, you can't do it from a place of like neediness. Like, I need the world to be better, otherwise I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Then people can feel that.
That's passivity, and that doesn't work, And another interesting thing is that it's almost like a ping pong game where you start being active rather than passive of things. You consciously try to make things better around you. And so first of all, of course, you're making the circumstances better for you because you've actually made an impact on the outside. But even the attempt alone to do something good for those around you is immediately making you better. And yeah, I have to share with you my like alternative header for your book, because I don't know, it just popped in my mind, and you can chuck it, of course. I'm not gonna impose it on there, but yeah, for me, it's for some reason something like get going, keep going, never stop is kind of something that popped in my head reading it. And like you say, it's almost like building up the courage, building up the passion to be able to start going on some, I don't want to say treadmill, that sounds boring, but start a journey. Yeah. Start a journey and make that first step of the 1,000 miles or whatever that we get in this lifetime, and then keep going, and then don't stop until something makes us stop. And along the way, revel in the beauty of the world and enjoy the company of those around you. And I also wanted to let you know that I find your your style of writing very interesting, right? Because at first you approach this book and it's unorthodox in a sense. There is a lot of different things you bring together, poems, quotes, Twitter threads, all sorts of things. And it takes some getting used to, but in the end, I really love it because it is very, I know you're a fan of the maxim that everything is a remix. And I think it's almost like the perfect remix, because it's like you say, there's so much there from people who have said these things, but it is put together and curated in a way that is very thought-provoking, because wherever you're going to open it, you're going to find this bite-sized thing, and it's going to make you think. So I think that's something that I enjoyed, actually, exactly as you said. Like, look at the overview, look at the structure, and then go somewhere, and then even reading it, you can kind of be easy on yourself. If you want to skip this part right now and you're very much attracted to a title of this chapter, of this subchapter, go there right now. It's going to be fine. It's going to somehow be remixed into or synthesized into a new thing. So I really appreciated that.
I love hearing this. That's very, that feels good for me as well. It's like, it's really, it was a bit of a risk, right? It's not very conventional, but I wanted to write the book that I wish someone had written for me. And yeah, the whole remixy idea is like, it's, again, I don't want to claim that I am, an authority who knows my stuff super well, such that I can give you this structured experience entirely of my own words. So what I am good at is I've read a lot of stuff all over the place all this time. So why should I, take center stage all the time when, Nietzsche said this, Kanye said that, there's all these other people who have said things, and I can kind of bring everyone, you bring in all these separate people and demonstrate that there is a sort of oneness throughout, like a thread through all of their sayings. And I think that I didn't explicitly say this, but it makes me feel good that there are so many different people and different sources of wisdom that all kind of wrap around the same one sense, right? So love and acceptance and inquiry. And yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's really nice to hear.
Yeah, of course. And it just pops in my mind as well that, it takes someone special. I can actually picture very few people who would be able to literally hang out with both Kanye and Nietzsche and stuff. But that kind of energy is also kind of spread throughout the book. Well, Visa, this has been a great pleasure to have you back on the podcast, and I hope that people will give your book at least a chance. And where is it found currently?
It's at, so if you want to, gum.co/introspect, or you can just Google Visakan Introspect and you'll find it.
Yeah, and there will be a link, of course. Well, Visa, this has been great, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
All right, thanks, y'all. I'll see you again. Sure. Bye-bye.